This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Football Night in America podcast here in the studio, which it could be our last time all being together in the studio. We'll see what happens as we inch closer to the divisional round. Maria Taylor alongside Matthew Berry, Mike Florio, Devin McCourty, and Jason Garrett here with you. Jason said we cannot watch the game in the monitor over here, so we will in fact be paying attention to one another.
Stay focused.
On this podcast.
It's that time of the year.
Yeah, let's lock in. Let's talk about what we saw in Wild Card Weekend, most notably the headlines from the Houston Texans totally dismantling the Chargers. What was your takeaway?
My biggest takeaway, impressive performance by the Texans, but Justin Herbert, I thought this was honestly a failure of Justin Herbert and the front office, right? I mean, Justin Herbert had thrown 3 interceptions the entire year. He'd never had a game with more than 2 interceptions in his entire career, and he throws 4, right? And I think part of the reason why is their offensive line got dominated, and other than a rookie wide receiver in Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnson gets 5 targets, 0 receptions. Like, they just weren't able to move the ball, right? And so, I mean, credit the Houston Texans defense, but the Chargers shouldn't have been that outclassed.
I will flip it over to the Texans because I think they realize they have one key player on the offensive side of the ball who's got experience winning in the postseason. He's been around for a while, and it's Joe Mixon. And they relied on him in the running game, and I think they relied on him heavily in the preparation game. You can hear from the things he said, things other players said. He got through to them about what playoff football means and what it takes to win in the postseason. Because last year, yes, they beat the Browns, but then the ride ended. This year, nobody expected them to win. Shout out Rex Ryan. He did them a favor by helping them get fired up, and Joe Mixon let him hear it. But I really do think relying on the guy they brought in as a free agent to be their main ball carrier, finally paying huge dividends when it mattered most.
I agree. You said it. Let him before the game, and then he smoked that Rex Ryan bye-week pack after the game, Joe Mixon in the locker room. But I think, too, we talked about Houston a week before, and they went and they played Tennessee, and they got the starters out early. They drove down, found Nico Collins for a touchdown, and it was just a good feeling. And I remember last week I was talking and saying, sometimes it doesn't matter you beat a bad team. You get a good feeling about yourself. You say, hey, this is playoff football starting now. And they beat up on Tennessee. Then they get in this game. No one gives them a chance. They're like, we're already in the groove. We're already going. And, I mean, again, a huge amount of credit to them, to DeMeco Ryans getting this team ready, doing what they had to do when everyone else said they keep losing, they don't look right, C.J. Stroud doesn't look right. They put it all together when it mattered most. And, Barry, I agree with you. You look at all of those stats from the season, and New England, we used to say it all the time, throw all those stats out the window. Yeah. It's a playoff, and it's one game that matters. You either win or you go home. So, yes, Herbert has been good taking care of the ball. Doesn't matter because you threw 4 when it mattered the most, and that's what kind of changed the game for them.
No doubt. And you remember last year when Kansas City was flopping around at the end of the year, and then they just kind of got themselves right. And they said, okay, this is how we can win. Hand it to Pacheco, throw it to Rice, throw it to Kelsey. That's how we're going to win playing offensive football. And they went right through the playoffs and won the Super Bowl. I'm really impressed when teams can right themselves for the big moments. And that's what Houston did. They struggled. The last month of the season, they did not look good. The quarterback did not look good. But you said it, the one drive last week, they go into this game. It wasn't great early, but then you see Mixon and Stroud. They're playing their best games they played since November. And it happened in the big moments. The engine of that team is their defense, their ability to take the ball away against Herbert and put pressure on him and make it an uncomfortable atmosphere was huge. But I couldn't have been more impressed with Houston and what DeMeco Ryans did there.
Their defense was fantastic. Even at the beginning of the game when the Chargers were moving the ball, they held them in the red. They played great red zone defense, and they held them to 2 field goals. They're only up 6-0. They probably should have been up 14-0. And so I'm with you, and it feels like the offense was like, oh, okay, we don't have to carry this thing. Our defenses came to play, so I think it relaxed them. It relaxed Stroud and the offense.
There's one more thought. In kind of the year of the reemergence of the running back, we talked about Mixon going down there. It's amazing what a running back can do to take pressure off the quarterback, make it more favorable coverages outside. If they're playing run defense, those guys outside are by themselves, and then it makes the defense play that much better because you're possessing the ball. And Mixon's contributions, they can't be overstated.
And one of the most important drives of the year when they're backed up on their one, down 6-0, and there was the third down, the crazy play that Stroud made. Absolutely. That was the spark. And
No doubt.
you never know where that spark's going to come. But once it comes, you grab it, and you see how far it can take you.
Well, now the reward for the Texans, they get to go to Kansas City, two-time defending champions. They might need some billboard material or bulletin board. Do you want to give
Not
them
for
anything?
me.
You're
Not
good?
for
Okay, you're not good.
It's not a bye week.
Okay, let's roll into the Steelers, who kind of rolled into the playoffs on fumes, I would say. And then we're just simply outclassed by the Ravens in their wild card matchup.
Well, and the Ravens offensively all year long have been incredible. When you look at Lamar Jackson's numbers, better than last year. And then Derrick Henry has 1,900 rushing yards on top of what Lamar Jackson did. They are unstoppable when they are clicking, and they've been clicking more often than not. And we just saw it. And look, the Steelers' defense did not look like the Steel Curtain of the 70s, but the Steelers of the 70s never had to deal with a Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on the same team.
And you said it, the way Baltimore's been playing, but looking at Pittsburgh, I think at the end of the year, we're sitting here, we're hearing their leaders, guys like Cam Hayward and different guys, Deshaun Elliott say, hey, on defense, we can't have 10 guys do the right thing and one guy doesn't. And you're like, hey, like I know they're struggling, but like this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have Mike Tomlin, like they can fix this. But the more you kept hearing all of the rumblings out of the locker room, it just felt like this thing was sinking. And that's usually what happens when you go into the playoffs like that. You have some turmoil going on, you play against a good football team, and you kind of get steamrolled and the season's over. And now they have so many questions going into the offseason. But again, credit to Baltimore. They've been preparing for this moment. And yes, win against Pittsburgh is big, but we all know they are focused on getting back to that AFC Championship game and having a chance to go to the Super Bowl.
And I think they have a chance to do it. You know, their offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, I think has done a fantastic job. I had a chance to visit with him during training camp, and he said we spent so much time in the offseason trying to figure out what exactly Lamar Jackson loved to run. And he was talking to me like Lamar Jackson had a bad year last year. The guy was the MVP of the National Football League, right? But he said, we got to really deconstruct this whole thing and really get into what he really likes and get him doing those things. And, you know, we saw him right from the start of the season. They've been steamrolling, and, you know, it makes a little bit of a difference when 22's back there, right? You have to deal with these two guys who are just elite players. And if you think about what Lamar did, and you said it, 1,900 yards rushing for Derrick Henry. I mean, what a combination. What do you do as a defensive player when you have to deal with both those guys? But I think Monken's done a great job mixing those guys, and they really found their identity. And they're a much improved defense, too, since about midway through the year. And I think that's what gives them a chance.
Anybody could have had Derrick Henry. Anybody could have had Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
You know, and you've been banging the drum for running backs, and I think people are finally going to listen after this year.
This is why I bang the drum for running backs. I played for the Cowboys for 8 years in the 90s. We won 3 Super Bowls. Emmitt Smith was our running back. He rushed for 18,000 yards. He made the quarterback better, the line better, the receivers better, made everybody better. The 2 best years when I was coaching in Dallas, DeMarco Murray led the league in rushing. Tony Romo had his best year. Dak Prescott's rookie year. Zeke Elliott led the league in rushing. Dak Prescott had a historic rookie year. You know, so the impact of these guys, and I think, and I blame your guy. I do. I blame Tom Brady. Because everybody watched New England win all those games for all those years, and they said, oh, the running back doesn't matter. You can have situational guys. You don't have to invest. Well, when Tom Brady's your quarterback, you don't need a lot of other things, right? And teams started to say that's the model for football. It's not the model unless you have that guy playing quarterback, and I think people are realizing that.
Well, I mean, I think Derrick Henry would have been great on any team, but being on Baltimore where you have to figure out, like, they do those RPOs and, like, pick your poison. Am I following Lamar or I'm following 22? I'm a big believer that cliches are cliches because they're true, right? They become cliches because they're true. We always say, like, you know, playoff football, right? You got to play good defense and run the ball. And that's exactly what what the Ravens did. 299 rushing yards against the Steelers, like a good defense and a team that had seen them twice. Like, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in the division, you know what I mean? Like, the Steelers knew what they were getting into with the Ravens, and it did not matter. They had touchdown drives in the first half of 95 yards, 85 yards, and 90. So this wasn't big plays. It was just methodical. Just chunk play after chunk play. Just we're running some more. Oh, we'll hit Rashad Bateman.
No, by the way, in the
Andrews.
process, ripping their heart out of their chest.
1,000%.
Just Zay Flowers.
Yeah, exactly. Without Zay Flowers. Like, I mean, they just beat them down. And this comment came up on the broadcast, and I thought it was right. It was weird that, especially for 2 teams that we know hate each other, right? Division rivals, fierce rivalry. It just didn't feel like Pittsburgh had any heart. It just didn't feel like there was a chippiness there, like, and credit Baltimore sort of for beating them out of that, but it just didn't feel like Pittsburgh came to play. And you would have thought if ever there was a game to get up for, it's a playoff game. against your division rival.
Let's go on to the Bills in Orchard Park because, I mean, we saw a touchdown strike basically from Bo Nix, the rookie. That was the best play for the Broncos. The Bills certainly steamrolled after that. They dominated time of possession. We put the graphic up at one point. It was like 41-14. It was impressive what we saw from the Bills as they prepare now to host the Ravens. What stood out the most for you?
Well, it's just Josh Allen. And we're going to get to see the top 2 MVP candidates next week because he showed up. He leads that offense. They move the ball. There aren't many defenses that can slow him down. You just need an offense that can outscore him, and the Broncos weren't able to keep it even remotely close by way of their production. So it's just the Bills doing exactly what we expect the Bills to do in the game. We got excited because we thought this could be an interesting game, and then, yeah, it's all Buffalo after that. And now, maybe different next week, but we know. We know the Bills are ready to go because Josh Allen is in the peak of his prime.
Yeah, and I like Denver's plan to start the game, right? You play against Buffalo. You got to try to play from ahead so you can run the ball and try to make it harder on their defense. So you hit that shot, and it's like, okay.
Here we go.
But then you just said it. It's that guy. It's number 17. It's Josh Allen. You're playing good defense. I said that to Chris Sims earlier. He's the most frustrating guy to play against because you're playing good defense. It's a 4th and 1 in the game, and like we got him. He's throwing the ball away, and Ty Johnson slides across the back of the end zone. And as a defender, you look and you go like, what? Like, how? How did that happen? And like, he has that effect on the game, and it's impressive. It's unique. It's wonderful to watch, but it's so frustrating as a defense. But I do get a little bit worried about them having to play Baltimore and Baltimore's style of play. But Josh Allen continues to have just great performances in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's amazing. When you think about pro football and how great each individual NFL player is, there are some guys who are different. You know, we talked about a couple. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry are different than the rest. Yep. It's like all these guys are like this, and these guys are just a cut above. And it's the same thing with Josh Allen. I watch this guy in amazement every week because playing quarterback in the NFL is hard. And he goes back there, and he's got these guys chasing him. He kind of runs over here and makes them miss, and runs over here. Then he goes over here. Then he throws. I mean, it's like he's a senior in high school, and he's playing against grade school kids. And each and every week he does this, and I think maybe more than anything else, beyond the plays that he makes, there's such a belief that everyone that Bills team has that we got 17, so we got a chance. And I think that elevates everybody else's play.
I also think, you know, I still have questions about the Bills' defense. They played well in this one, but it was a rookie quarterback on the road at Buffalo, right? Maria, you mentioned the time possession, right? Specifically, it was 41-43 for the Bills, 18-17 for the Denver Broncos. And I think it was just a brilliant game plan to say, like, hey, we're sort of gonna play defense with our offense. We're not gonna let them have the ball. You know, they scored on 6 of their first 7 drives, the Bills did, and they ran for 210 yards. James Cook ran. By the way, Josh Allen did what the Bills have been doing all year long, got everyone involved. 8 different players caught passes today from Josh Allen, so they just get everyone involved. They're running the ball well, and they're keeping the ball away from Denver. And just, you know, I can't wait to see them play the Ravens next week.
We're all looking forward to it. 2 MVP candidates. Like, this is what you signed up for, but this is the second time we're seeing them face off against each other in the playoffs. Buffalo got the win in 2020. Let's go on to the Eagles taking on the Packers. We saw Jalen Hurts returning for the Eagles. Remember, he had missed the final 2 games in the concussion protocol. And we talked about it, Jason, but it wasn't pretty. That's not how we were going to describe that. But they got the win. They got out of there. What is the takeaway you take with you?
The takeaway is I think that's what this team is. I think the strength of their team is their offensive line and their defensive line. And that's funny to say that when 26 is your running back, right? But they just win the line of scrimmage every week. And sometimes it's a little ugly. The passing game took a long time to get started in this game. But they're just a tough, rugged, physical team. They win the line of scrimmage. They run the football. They take the ball away on defense. I like their team. It's old school NFC East football. And they will play better. They rested their guys last week, so there was a little rust, particularly in the passing game early on in the game. But I think for them to beat an upstart Packer team, kind of get finished with them in this initial round, I think they're going to get better and better as they go. I think they're going to be a tough out.
Yeah, and we said that. We all felt like Green Bay was a little bit of a dangerous team. They're a little inconsistent, but when they're hot and they're playing well, they can come in and beat anybody. So I think what you just said with Philly coming off that break, and you got to remember, Hurts wasn't able to practice. He just came back this week and was able to practice in that protocol. So a lot of rust. But I think when you get that bye week or you take a bye week, whatever you want to call it, you just want to survive in the playoffs. You earn the right to play again next week. They did that, and I think they'll be ready to go. They'll be fired up. And this team is, again, it's a tough out when you have to play against a team. And Jason said, when you dominate both sides of the ball on the line of scrimmage, everyone likes to sit on the sideline and just watch and see which way the line of scrimmage goes. You say it all the time as a coach. True. And that's what they win. And in the playoffs, when you do that, you can destroy and just dominate a team, and it's hard to win for anybody else you play.
I look at it as bad news and good news for the Eagles. The bad news is they did kind of screw around a little bit, and you feel like if they were facing a team with a more potent offense, a fully healthy quarterback, because I don't think that Jordan Love's elbow was right. He was trying to talk his way around it all week long. I think that affected him, and the offense suffered from it. The good news is, how many teams can have a bad day and still win by double digits? I mean, that's a hallmark of an elite team. We weren't at 100% in our execution. We gave them opportunities. It was a one-score game longer than it should have been. They hung around. When it was 10-0, it felt like it should have been 30-0, but we still slammed the door in their faces. And poor Packers, 12-6 this year, with 2 losses to the Eagles, 2 losses to the Lions, 2 losses to the Vikings.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Credit their defense. The offense kind of sputtered. Credit the Packers' defense that, you know, they get the brutal turnover on the first play, on the kickoff return. Kind of a questionable call there. I sort of thought Green Bay should have probably kept possession there. But either way, like the Packers' defense, easy would have been to just, but they hung tough. And like, as you said, we felt like it should have been 30-0 after that first half because the Packers were so bad, but they hung in there as well. Credit the Eagles' defense, who's played so well this year. I mean, Jordan Love just imploded into this one, right? 3 interceptions. He takes 2 sacks. They also had the fumble on the kickoff. Like, you know, their defense allowed the offense to sort of find its rhythm. Like, they didn't run as well as we've seen. Like, Saquon got 86 yards or something like that, but we've seen Saquon be much more effective. Hurts looked a little rusty, as you said. But yeah, your point, like they just kept they kept the Packers off balance all game.
I do have to correct myself. I am committed to journalistic integrity, as you know.
Yes.
They also lost to the Bears, but I have wiped the entire Week 18 experience out of my brain. That's my excuse.
We understand. It didn't exist. It never happened. It never happened. And we'll see what happens with Nakobe Dean as well. Could be a big loss for the Eagles defense. Let's go into a quick preview of games we know for sure are on our schedule in the AFC. We talked about it a little bit, but the Texans going on the road, taking on the Chiefs. Devin, your quick synopsis of what you expect to see in that one.
I don't think it's just Houston has no shot. It's an uphill battle. Kansas City is #1 seed, defending champs for a reason. I think the key point in this game for Houston, get off to a good start. Whether you start on offense or defense, get a 3 and out. Offense, drive down, long drive. You got to try to get at Kansas City early, hoping they have a little bit of rust in there, and you take advantage of them.
I think a big part of this game, and really a lot of these games that we've been watching so far, is time of possession. And I think you have to be careful about making time of possession an objective. Your objective is to score points, right? You want to drive the ball and score points. So don't tell me how long the drive is, but if you can possess the ball, we've seen Washington do that tonight against Tampa, 17-play drive. You know, if you can do that, you're keeping those playmakers over there. The easiest way to stop Patrick Mahomes is when he's standing next to Andy Reid, right? So if they can possess the ball, and I think because they have Joe Mixon and this high percentage passing game that we saw against the Chargers, they have a chance to do that. Because I just have so much faith in Kansas City and that quarterback, so I just think you have to limit his opportunities as best you can.
We've seen the Chiefs struggle more often than not this year. They get the win, they find a way, but the big lesson is, and even though there aren't many Texans players, if any, still left from the Divisional Round game that the Texans played in Kansas City, and they were up 24-0. I mean, the Chiefs are never done. You can never let your foot slip off the gas pedal. If you are fortunate enough to get on a roll like they were, you have to just keep pressing and pressing because Mahomes is not done until the game is over and you've scored more points than he has, because he will keep coming, and that's going to be the biggest challenge. No matter what the Texans do well, Mahomes is going to be next level because they are within sniffing distance of doing something no one's ever done before with 3 Super Bowl wins.
Sure.
Yeah, you know, it'll be interesting to see. It's kind of 2 immovable forces and which one sort of bends here, right? Because Andy Reid, off of a bye throughout his career, is unbelievable. In fact, he has his only loss off of a bye in the Patrick Mahomes era was the Super Bowl against Tom Brady. Every other time that he's had at least more than 1 week to prepare, he wins, especially in the playoffs. But they haven't played since Christmas. We've talked about this. I mean, they rested all their starters in Week 18. Like, that's a long time. So, will there be rust? And if it takes them a half, and again, we've seen the Chiefs' offense start and sputter a little bit. And so, if, Mixon gets hot and they get a play here too, like, you could see it be getting pretty interesting in the second half. That's what they need, is the Texans need to get out to a lead and hold on.
And we touched on it a little bit, but the Ravens going on the road to Orchard Park, who knows, could be snow. We know it's going to be cold. What weather could play the role in this game, but what do you expect to see as the Ravens? I mean, they're trying to do something, too. Lamar Jackson hasn't been able to do despite winning his MVP.
And, it's a bad matchup for the Bills, too. You look at what the Ravens did to them in the regular season. They just kind of steamroll them. And if they demoralize the Buffalo defense the way they demoralize the Steelers defense, it doesn't matter what Josh Allen does. Anytime he gets on the field, fine. Scores, well, the Ravens are just going to grind it out. And the next thing you know, just like what happened when the Steelers got their first touchdown on Saturday night, next thing you know, the Ravens, boom, Derrick Henry breaks free and there's another 7. You're always going to have that threat that they're going to score 7 to your 7. It's just going to continue all night long.
And I will say the health of Zay Flowers, I think, will play a part in this, because how Buffalo decides to defend. If you decide to get everybody up there to try to stop Derrick Henry, play man-to-man, not having Zay Flowers changes a little bit how you have to play as a defense. When he's in there, his quickness and how fast it changes if you have a guy that can cover him. But, I mean, I agree with you. I just think Baltimore has a lot on offense, and they have an offense that we've seen Josh Allen in these shootouts. But the way Baltimore can play can have Josh Allen on the sideline for a long time. And if it starts snowing and stuff, you do not want to tackle Derrick Henry in snow and his jersey's wet. Like, you don't want those problems.
Yeah. As elite as Lamar has been as a passer, I think if you're Buffalo from a defensive standpoint, what scares you the most is 22 running it and Lamar extending plays. So I think if you can somehow commit people to the line of scrimmage to not let Deuce get started, I think that's a huge part of it. Because he can control the game with 4- and 5-yard runs, and then he starts stiff-arming you. And they're 15, 20, 60-yard runs. So the guy can do both. He can be the home run hitter and the guy who controls the pace of the game. And then Lamar, as great as he's been in the pocket, you just can't let him get out. So the rush lane integrity is critical. You got to hem him in as best you can. And this is what teams try to do every week, right? It's always the game plan. The question is, can you execute it?
It's going to be a fascinating matchup because you've got two teams that are sort of mirror images of each other. Like the Bills run the ball very well. Obviously, James Cook is not Derrick Henry. They're different running backs. But James Cook has almost 20 touchdowns this year. I mean, like he has run very effectively. Ran for over 100 yards against the Broncos today. So they both run the ball well. They both have mobile quarterbacks with big arms that can extend plays with their legs and their arm. They both play well from ahead, right? And they both have defenses that have spent weeks practicing against a similar type quarterback, right? The Baltimore Ravens having to face Lamar every week in practice, they're prepared for Josh, and vice versa with the Bills. They played earlier this season, and the Ravens absolutely boat raced them, right? It was like something like 35-10. We had that game, and so it'll be interesting to see is like how much does Baltimore feel like, yeah, we know these guys, we can take them, versus Bills saying like, it was a bad game, but we're back. So. I think Baltimore might have a little bit too much to handle.
But not many road teams win in the playoffs in Buffalo, and that goes back a long, long way.
For sure.
That's very true.
And even though the Ravens won that game 35-10 in Week 4, there were weeks when the Ravens' defense struggled. And when they brought in Dean Pease to work with Zach Orr, and Dean Pease, I mean, the defense has gradually gotten better and better and better, and that gives them another thing that they can maybe lean on when they're trying to figure out how to slow down Josh Allen.
I talked to Kyle Van Noy, outside linebacker for them, and he said that Dean Pease coming in was a huge help and lift for everybody on that defense. He just settled everything down.
They made some adjustments, and it's made a big difference. And now we get the matchup that we've all been waiting for going into the divisional round. Let's talk about, I know the winners go the spoils, but let's talk about the losers and what they need or what we would give them in the 2025 season. Let's start with the Broncos, Jason.
I just think they need more time. I mean, I think Sean Payton has done a fantastic job there. Sean was convicted about Bo Nix in the draft process. He loved him. He was strong in his evaluation. He was excited to get him. And we've been talking about Jaden Daniels all year long and some of the other rookie quarterbacks. Bo Nix played like a veteran player, and they have a quarterback for a long, long time. They just need to keep building it. The defense played awfully well. You start adding some more pieces to that offense to make Bo's environments better. I think they have a real chance.
I mean, one of their highest cap numbers is a guy not on the team. They just need some more cap space. Like this team, as handicapped as they were with the cap, to get to the playoffs with a rookie quarterback, I agree with you. The time that they're going to now have, and they're going to create and have more money to get some veterans in there. If I'm Denver and I'm a fan, I'm happy about what they did this year.
They could use a really competent pass-catching tight end. Adam Troutman had 13 catches for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns this year. Get a Jimmy Graham type of a guy in there. Not that they're easy to find, but there's guys out there, and Sean Payton knows how to scout
tight end
them.
class coming out.
Yeah, get a pass-catching tight end, and that may open up that offense.
Yeah, I was going to say pass catchers. I mean, I wrote down age and experience as well, Coach. I'm the same way. It's a young team. I don't think Denver has anything to be ashamed of. They should hold their heads high. They had a great season. You know, losing on the road to Buffalo is nothing to be ashamed of. But I do think, other than Courtland Sutton, they don't really have a lot of weapons on offense in the passing. You know, we've seen some nice moments from Marvin Mims, you know, but Devon Bailey, they have a bunch of kind of guys. So I feel like getting another elite pass catcher, whether it's a tight end or another wide receiver for Bo Nix, would help.
I didn't preface this by saying it was a speed round. I would like to formally apologize.
The music's not as fast as you.
Is that what it is?
That's what
Okay,
it is.
get her glow. What about the Chargers?
Well, I think they need receivers. It can't just be Ladd McConkey, and it obviously can't be Quentin Johnson. They got to have people who can catch passes from Justin Herbert. And they just got to get him right and get him ready to play well in the postseason.
I think we're all going to say the
Same thing.
They just need more weapons out there for Herbert to throw the ball to.
Yeah, ditto. It was a one-trick pony outside. And they'll get some other guys. And I know everybody's down on Justin Herbert right now, and he played poorly in the big game. I get all that. But there are a lot of general managers and head coaches who
would love.
Yeah, in a heartbeat, they do it tonight. So.
Yeah, I wrote wide receiver. You know, they let Mike Williams and Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler go in the offseason. Everyone said, oh, it's going to be fine. And, you know, I mean, McConkey was a hit for them, but they need more production from the pass catchers beyond him.
Okay, what about the Steelers?
The Steelers, I think they need offense, right? I mean, like, I'm not even sure if Russell Wilson's back. I don't know if they have a quarterback next year. Other than George Pickens, it doesn't feel like they have a lot on the offensive side of the ball. They've got a nice run game, but, I mean, same sort of thing. They feel one-dimensional too often.
This is not conducive to the speed round, what the Steelers need. The Steelers need a lot.
You
they
got
need
a
a
lot
lot.
of stuff to these.
Right, but they need a lot. They really do. And the worst thing that could have happened to them, they came into the season with low expectations, and all of a sudden, they're 10-3. And we forget that this is ridiculous overachievement, and then the wheels came off just as people were starting to think, hey, they might have something this year. So they've just got to reset in several different areas. They're committed to bringing back Mike Tomlin, as they should be, but you got to wonder how many years Art Rooney will tolerate knocking on the door in the first round of the playoffs and not opening it. That continues to become worse and worse as that 8-year losing streak without a postseason victory continues.
I agree. I think they got to try to evaluate as many things as possible. We heard after the game, George Pickens said, "Are you optimistic at what you were able to do offensively a little bit today?" He's like, "Nah." Like he said there was growth, but he's not optimistic. So like, what does that really mean? And like, yeah, guys on the defense saying we had 10 guys doing it right, 1 doing it wrong. So I just think they have to. Is this the right mix of guys in here? What are some veterans we might need to bring in? Are there veterans we need to move on from? Like, what do we need? We know Mike Tomlin's a really good football coach. What does he need to not be one and done in the playoffs? That's what I think they have to figure out. They've kind of been going with the same group of guys. Is that the guys, or do we need to move on?
Yeah, and I think the biggest question for me is that the guy? Is Russell Wilson the quarterback? And you have to make that decision. Where does Justin Fields fit in, or do we start anew again?
Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, who knows?
I've been saying that for a few weeks.
Yeah, so I think
Kirk
that's
Cousins?
their biggest question they have to figure out. I think it's a good move to keep Mike. I think he's a fantastic coach, but you know, I think a lot of people who follow the Steelers are getting a little impatient with this same routine. And since Ben Roethlisberger left, they've been trying to address this question. And so they got to get it figured out if they want to take the next step.
Anything that Football Night in America needs going into 2025, Florio?
No more speed rounds.
Why did anybody say it? We need to let the world know. Maria's not 100% right, But she's also not 100%.
I was going to say not 100% of the time, but more likely than not, you're going to want to follow my lead and not theirs.
And we're just lucky to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
He always has to go. Like, this is the nice guy over here.
Hey, listen, we don't know where we're going to be next week, but we know we're going to be having a great time. So follow along. Florio will let you guys know. And thanks for listening to the Football Night in America pods all season long. And we will see you next weekend.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.